It's time for This Week in WordPress, episode number 182, entitled Hurkle Derkling. It was recorded on Monday, the 11th of October, 2021. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and I'm joined as always by some fabulous guests this week. We've got Dan Maybe and Bob Dunn. There's a load of stuff to talk about, as there always is. The first thing is the brand new HeroPress network. There's loads of new stuff happening over there. They've got their podcast initiative, they've got the Find WP initiative, and we're here to discuss all about that. Then we move on to, well, a bit of a flame war piece, a sponsored hit, if you like, over on the Next Web. Nice to get into some politics once in a while. We talk about WordCamp US, which was online over the last week, and then the release cycle for the default theme in WordPress is going to become probably quicker. The Page Builder Summit is coming up. I'm hosting it with Anshin LaRue, so we have a little bit of a discussion about that and a look at the schedule. A new Block Injector plugin has come around from Jamie Marsland, and it could help you if you wish to put blocks inside your content all over your website. We then talk about a new activity log plugin, as well as Ghost Inspector, which enables you to perform tests on your WordPress website. And then towards the end, Project Huddle has been bought by Brainstorm Force, and loads of problems over on the Facebook side of things. Should we give up our Facebook accounts? And finally, let's finish it off with a discussion about a new federated publishing platform called Mirror. And last but by no means least, Cloudflare making things an awful lot cheaper on the web, and Herkle Derkling. Find out what that means. It's all coming up next on This Week in WordPress. This Week in WordPress was brought to you by A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time? The new A/B Split Test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is that it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder and the WordPress block editor. Go check it out and get a free demo at absplittest.com. Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning in the case of Bob. WP Builds episode number one. Oh, I think it says 181. I think it's 182. If it says 181 and it's actually 182, I will certainly correct it. I'm joined as always by a couple of guests. Tear comes to my eye, no longer Paul Lacey each and every week, but I found very high quality replacements this week. I'm joined first of all by Dan Maybe. You've probably heard of Dan Maybe in various places, but how are you doing, Dan?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come and have a chat with you here.
Yeah, it's great. Dan, I'm going to do the official reading out the things that Paul Lacey used to do. Dan is the founder of Big Orange Heart and WordFest Live. You can see it over his forehead. He's an agency owner, WPLDN lead, and he's also passionate about community events with 15 years focusing on WordPress. I'm going to add some more to that, Dan, but you might want to plug your ears. Dan does more for the WordPress community than just about anybody I know, and most of it he doesn't announce particularly. And so, bravo, Dan! Thank you very much for all that you do. That was a very pithy version of everything. WPLDN. What does that stand for?
At the WordPress London meetup.
Okay, so he's with us here this week, along with the ever so early riser. It's Bob Dunn, all the way from California. Is it California?
Washington.
Okay, Washington, same side but different state.
Yeah,
and Bob's gone super pithy on the introduction. Bob says he's a podcaster and connector at Do the Woo. Give us more. What's Do the Woo? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, it's something I've been. It's actually just turned a year, and I'm in the middle of a rebuild and a rebrand on it, which I was hoping to have by this episode, but I don't. But it's a site built to elevate the WooCommerce builder community. So I get a lot of smart people on there talking via posts, podcasts, and my job is to kind of help support them, educate them, get them connected, and kind of a little bit of a niche of the WordPress community. But really, it's kind of all good because it's just sits on top of WordPress, so the community sits on top of the WordPress community.
Why all the years ago that you made it just WooCommerce? Why?
Oh man,
What
what a
was the
story!
catalyst?
The pivotal point probably was when I was doing Bob WP and I was doing tutorials for a gazillion years. I decided to start doing focus on WooCommerce because it was becoming more. It's something I had done myself, so I decided, okay, why don't I start writing more tutorials on WooCommerce? Because actually I was monetizing my site through a lot of affiliates and stuff like that. And people were more willing to pay money. And it just, okay, I'll just focus on that more and more. And it just organically evolved over a period of time where okay, I'm writing all WooCommerce stuff. I'm sick of writing tutorials. If I have to do it again, put my head in the vise and squeeze it, please, and just tell me no more tutorials. So I was done with that. And I said, I got to get back into some kind of community type thing. I mean, I've always been involved, but the site never reflected kind of that community connection. So I thought, well, I've got this podcast I've been doing for a few years around WooCommerce. Why don't I just take from that and build out? And of course, that's when I tell myself to do that. It's like a gazillion ideas come, and that's how it kind of matured to where it is now.
It's
I've got to say, Bob, it's been wonderful actually to watch your transition from from those tutorials at the Bob WP days through to where to where this is going now with Do the Woo.
yeah. The well, thank you both of you for coming on today. It's really appreciated, especially as it's 6 o'clock in the morning where Bob is. Here it's it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We didn't have to do anything special for me and Dan, but Bob's managed to get up particularly early, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you catch me at the best time my voice is too. So
yes,
So it's not worn out by the end of the day.
you have a particularly good voice as well. I'm sure many people comment on your voice, and it's anyway, it's nice to have you with us. For reasons that I can't quite understand, the Facebook comments, the YouTube comments over at the website weren't working. So I've just, whilst Bob was talking, I just went in and did a little bit of a fix. So if you just want to refresh the page, it might bring it back live. But if you're over in the Facebook group, come and say hi. We always like it if you make any comments. If you're on the Facebook side of things, then you do need to let them know that you're willing to be de-anonymized. Otherwise, Facebook won't know. And every single week we get people dropping in and it just says Facebook user. That's fine if you want to do it that way. But if you would like to give us your avatar and your name, then you'll need to go, as it says on the screen, chat.restream.io/FB and click, I guess it's a blue confirm button or something like that, and it will allow that to happen. Feel free to drop any questions in or comments, usually, not questions, but we'll kick off today. We've got loads and loads of stuff happening this week, as there is pretty much every week. So I'll share my screen. Just first thing to say, that's not the right sign up form. Crikey. On the website, there is a great big blue rectangle. That shouldn't be there. There you go. That's something I've got to fix when this call's finished. But this is our website, wpbuilds.com, where we produce a podcast on a Thursday and then we push this episode out. We repurpose it, make it into a sort of podcast episode. That comes out on a Tuesday. But where that great blue form is, hopefully you don't see the blue form. You see something a little bit more streamlined than that. But if you want to keep in touch with what we do, go and fill that out, and we'll send you an email twice a week just to let you know when we've made new content. But that's not the point of today. This is the point of today. Let's crack on with the WordPress news. Friend of the podcast and somebody who I've been in touch with a little bit lately, Topher DeRosier and Kate DeRosier, they've got a new initiative. In fact, they've got a whole multitude of initiatives going on at the moment, and this is the most recent one. You may or may not have heard of HeroPress before, but HeroPress is a website which has been going, I think I read 6 years. It was either 5 or 6 years. It was something around that amount of time. And Topher and Kate have been producing pieces featuring members of the WordPress community and writing up their stories, and it's really a cool thing. But they're straying into other territory. If I can slide down a little bit, you might be able to see what it is that they're hoping to do. Yeah, here we go. So they've got HeroPress, they've got the podcast Hallway Chats. Very recently, they launched WP Podcasts, which Bob, I'm sure, is on, and I am on. It's like an amalgamated. If you're into WordPress and you like listening to podcasts, then go to WP Podcasts, and it will serialize all the podcasts from all the people as they come out. It's really nice. But they're also going into to produce something soon called Find It WP. And they're sort of, because now they've got all these distinct properties, they've decided they're going to hook it into this one place. And so the thing to bookmark is heropressnetwork.com. I'll say it again, heropressnetwork.com, and that will kind of keep you up to date on all the things. Previously, Topher and Kate ran HeroPress as a not-for-profit, I believe. But this time around, because of the workload involved and what have you, they are actually on the lookout for sponsorships to offset some of the costs in time and energy and, general tooling that they need to buy. It says here for development costs, operating costs, a salary, and also in the future, hopefully to be able to travel to WordPress events and so on. So I'm raising the awareness of this because I want you to know about it. But equally, I want you, if you've got your hand on the purse strings of some sponsorship money, this might be an absolutely fabulous place to make it land. Any thoughts on this? Should we start with Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I've got bucket loads of love and respect for the full DeRosier family. I mean, Kate, Topher, just across the board, they've been absolutely wonderful people to have within our community. But I just want to highlight on that page their what. Kate goes into the what of the HeroPress network. I just want to read it. The HeroPress network is a system of resources that work together to help the global WordPress community build relationships and advance their skills by creating simpler, more equitable ways to access information and resources. I thought, just what a wonderful mission, a wonderful thing that they're doing here. So big shout out to them. I believe it's the 24th of October. They're opening up opportunities to work with funders.
Yeah, it says here, one last note, the HeroPress network is being run as a for-profit. To do this, we'll be opening funding from 24th. You're right, 24th of October, 2021. Yep. What about you, Bob?
I can echo everything Dan said, basically. I know the Topher family, or the DeRosier family, I should say, very well. I've been on numerous calls with Kate over the last 12 months talking about this. We shared a lot of battle scars and ideas and stuff. And yeah, it's an amazing thing. I kind of knew it was coming, but I am so glad to see it finally, because they put a lot of time and efforts into this, and it's exciting to see where it goes. And I think they have some really cool ideas here to, the podcast thing is great, and the where they'll be putting all the the Find It. Well, I can't remember exactly what it was called.
Find It WP. I think
that's going to be, it's going to be real interesting to see how that plays out. And I'm excited for them.
See where it goes. Find It WP. The website's already up, even though, as it says on the page, it says coming soon. It says curated list of everything WordPress. So every podcast, email, newsletter, training site, development agency, theme shop, plugin shop, everything. That's quite a tall order, isn't it? They're going to have a lot of work. I'm going to start a new website each week. I'm going to spin it up in local and just write a couple of words. I have to keep up with that. No, it's lovely, and I think they've spent a very long time building up a fabulous reputation for how to describe it, sort of doing the right thing and being there and being. I think I described it previously as relentlessly awesome, something like that, and now it would be really nice if, like I said, anybody who has their hands on the purse strings who is able to contribute. I don't know what level they're looking at. Maybe if Topher drops in the comments at any point, or Kate, then you could let us know whether it's corporate or smaller or what the packages are. Maybe there's no thought in that just yet. But anyway, there we go. There's our first piece for this week. HeroPressNetwork.com for the future. Okay, great. All right, let's crack on. This Yeah, you got to have a bit of politics, haven't you? It's important to have a bit of mudslinging and controversy each and every each and every week. And this week we've got a piece written by Justin Tadlock. He's something I think was maybe there's a few pieces like this that never kind of hit the WP Tavern, but this week he's decided he wanted to share something, and the piece is entitled "The Next Web Publishes Storyblock's Sponsored Hit Piece on WordPress." And this was published on the 4th of October 2021. If you want to go and find it, it's quite a lot of comments. 20 people commented on it, which is really rather a lot. And it's just basically to raise the fact that there was an interview, which was a piece which was written on the Next Web, which is a publication I used to visit all the time, but I actually can't remember the last time I went there. I don't know why that is. It's what?
I'm exactly the same.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
and to be honest, this has done a lot of damage for me, reputational wise. Both across the company that has sponsored this piece. And essentially, this is just a sponsored ad. I mean,
well, that's what it feels like, because they wrote a piece all about why developers hate WordPress. And they mentioned various statistics about the amount of hate, and 67% is the amount of hate, apparently. Okay, there you go. 67% of people polled hate WordPress and developers in general. I think it was done over on Stack Overflow, which, to be fair, is quite an interesting statistic. Would be curious to get to the bottom of why that is. But then it turns out, if you read a little bit deeper, it would appear that some of the people who are interviewed in the piece are also kind of behind relationships sponsoring the piece as well. So maybe there's a little bit more to it than that. And I just thought it was curious. It's nice to have a little bit of politics thrown in each and every week. So go and check this out. I've got nothing more to say about it, and just I don't have 67% hatred of WordPress. I think mine's quite a bit less, probably about the 2 or 3% currently. Occasionally, when the block editor doesn't save something, it rises considerably. But mostly it's in the low single digits. And what do you guys think? Obviously, Dan, you've had your go. What about you, Bob?
Blah blah blah. Yeah. It's kind of I looked at it when somebody was spreading it around on Twitter, I think, before this piece came out, and I went and kind of perused through it real quick, and I thought, okay, this is what network am I on here? It just it was it's too bad they have to do it, but it's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, what's really interesting for me is it gave Justin the capacity to do some sleuthing, which I thought was quite nice. He was able to actually go and hang on a minute, something about this seems a bit fishy, and then he went off and did some journalism and investigation and discovered that there were all these connections to be made. Anyway, who knew that there was a whole bunch of people out there that dislike WordPress? I guess that's the way it's going to be. I like it, you like it, Bob likes it, Topher likes it. It's fine. Let's just get on and move on to that.
Yeah, I just think we do need to be a bit careful around the integrity of this, don't we? I mean, there's an issue with journalistic integrity, but also the people that are interviewed in this so-called journalistic story. Were they aware of what they were being interviewed for? Were they aware of how it was going to be portrayed? And I just think it's trying to compare apples with oranges. To be honest, I mean, it's all the company that delivers this is a headless CMS. With I think 509 active installs. If you look at the
Storyblock, right?
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that was quite interesting, wasn't it? The number of Justin did a nice job in putting statistics on the one hand on the WordPress side, and then on the sort of Storyblock side. Anyway, there you go.
Dare I mention headphones? Anyone?
Oh yeah, that was Wix last year, wasn't it? Did you get any headphones?
Not.
They tried to. I blew them off on Twitter. It was really weird, and I didn't realize what was going on. I mean, Wix sent me a DM on Twitter and said, "Hey, we want to send you something for whatever," and I was like, "What are you sending me?" They said, "Well, we want your address. We want to send a little gift." It wouldn't tell me, and I said, nah, I'll pass. So, I don't, it was either way when I started seeing them coming, but it was interesting because I thought, okay, there's some little ploy behind there and whatever. So
I guess you've got to do something these days to shake WordPress from its perch, and I guess maybe things like this do have a little bit of a reach. I can't say, like I said, I haven't been reading the Next Web for such a long time, but I did. It was really part of my suite of 5 or 6 non-WordPress specific things that I used to dip into, but I don't know why that dropped off my calendar, because it was right in my feed reader, and it was probably when Google killed it. Maybe that's what did it, and I had to start again. There we go. Right, okay, let's move on. Let's talk about WordPress actual things. The WordPress community. We have WordCamps. They happen in the real world when things are not all pandemic-y. Obviously, at the moment, nothing is happening. It hasn't been happening for over 2 years. Is that right? 2 years? It is 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years now, and so everything's online, but we hope at some point in the future we'll return to the real world. Anyway, last weekend, just a few days ago, in fact, WordCamp US was on. It was in an online capacity, and looks to have been a real success in terms of the amount of attendees and what have you. Both Dan obviously working with WordFest, and me with I'm going to get the right finger. No, I'm not. I'm going to get the wrong finger. The Page Builder. I know every time I just get it wrong every time. The Page Builder Summit. We know what these numbers are like, and 3,600 is pretty good, but 400 apparently sometimes concurrent sessions, which is really good. Getting 400 people into a space at any one time is pretty amazing. Just comparing that to if you were actually attending a real live WordCamp event and 400 people were sat in front of you, that would be a terrifically big audience. You'd be mightily happy with that. Don't know which sessions in particular. I, with regret, was unable to attend anything, largely because it was the weekend time for us, but also because of the fact that I'm trying to get the wrong finger again, the Page Builder Summit on. How do I not remember that?
Left hand.
And so I missed all of it. But Dan, let's flip over. Let's go to Bob. Did you attend any of this? Are you fed up with the old online stuff now?
I'm kind of burnt out at this point. I popped in just to peruse around, and I was actually trying to find, but I thought there were a few chats going on, but I wasn't able to quite connect with them. I think I saw some people talking on Twitter about them, but other than that, I just popped into a couple of sessions real quick, and they had some good speakers, some new speakers and stuff, but I didn't spend a lot of time in there. Again, I was kind of time constrained, and I don't spend a lot of time on virtual conferences anymore. I'm pretty picky and choosy when it comes to those, but I'm impressed with the numbers, and I'm glad they're keeping it up. At least there's some consistency going through.
Yeah. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, I managed to attend a couple of sessions. I do have some questions though, and I've got huge amount of respect for the entire organising team, and I appreciate this was organised in an incredibly short time period. I believe it was 8 weeks from concept to delivery, which is that's a massive undertaking, to be honest. And I've got a couple of questions around that. Are we putting too much pressure on ourselves? These events aren't, they're quite a big ask in terms of delivery. And having delivered events myself, and Nathan, obviously you've gone through this as well, it takes a lot to bring this to a community. And I feel, are we asking too much of our community in the way that we're doing this at the moment? I mean, I've got a few questions around that post specifically. I mean, I think that figure 3,600, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Those were the registered attendees. That doesn't necessarily reflect the number of people that are actually there. And I just wonder if that's a little bit misleading. And I also have a question. You got a $30,000 budget that was spent on that event. I'd be really interested, and I'll connect with whoever I can to discuss where was that spent? What was that spent on? Because that's an incredibly high budget for what we can do as a community. And I'm saying this with the knowledge of delivering WordFest twice now, a 24-hour event, 2 tracks, hundreds of people involved across the thing. And for me, that it's about that kind of community focus. And if we can bring the community together to deliver an event into our community, which is really the focus that we have around WordFest. And I just wonder where $30,000 has been spent to
Yes.
deliver an
Yeah.
8-hour event.
Curious. Yeah. $30,000. If anybody does, I mean, obviously Kate will know, because we should give her props once again. We were mentioning her a minute ago. She was, what was her official title? WCUS organizer. So I'm guessing that she had the lion's share of things to decide and what have you. So maybe if Kate's around at some point, she could let Dan know. Dan at bigorangeheart.org. Although I think you've probably got slightly quicker ways of getting in touch with Dan. But
I do fully appreciate it's a small team, and there's a lot. I think it was a big ask. I think is really what I'm saying is the big kind of takeaway for this.
Yes, and curiously, in this piece, which I should say is on WP Tavern, it's Sarah Gooding writing it. She did say that they had decided not to go with alternative platforms. So there's lots of platforms which you can get off the peg, and they talk about a couple. What were they mentioning? One called Hotpin, one called Vietly. And I guess these are SaaS apps that you can purchase for a period of time. And they decided to stay away from that because it would have increased the cost significantly. They say maybe even doubled it. So they went for a more low key approach. But obviously, in my case, sadly, being unable to attend, I can't feedback as to what that was. But did you say, Bob, that it was sort of broadcast live on YouTube, or was that Dan? One of you said that.
Yeah, I can't remember how I got to it, some link I found, but and it was very low key. I mean, they kept it tight. It didn't have all the bells and whistles, sponsor booths and things like that. I know you two can relate to both sponsor booths and chat rooms and stuff like that. I don't know how that, really pays out in the end if, there's, activity, if there's enough activity to defend that kind of a cost or whatever. So there's a lot of play. I find it real intriguing when I go to virtual. I sometimes go to them just because I like to see how they have it set up and where people are hanging, what's doing. And I typically will drop in on almost anyone just to check that out. But there's so many challenges, and I respect both of you and anybody that goes into virtual, any kind of virtual event, because it's a unique baby for sure.
Yeah,
especially during this time when everybody's been doing them so long.
Yeah, I think it's curious, isn't it? So obviously, my history with actual WordCamp events was basically going to the London one and the Manchester one, and that was and meetups. I think only a couple of times in Leeds. So it was limited by geography. I went with Dan. Dan took me along to the one in Berlin in Europe, but it really is constrained largely for me by the geography and the ability to drive or get the train or what have you, or to be close by. And the idea that because it's available online, the entire community would, for example, drop in on the WordCamp US one. It's a difficult one, isn't it? It's hard to us, which is why obviously Dan's event is spread over 24 hours so that you are sort of geographically close to it at some point during the day. For the Page Builder Summit, the wrong hand again. That thing. I keep raising. The reason I'm saying this is I keep raising my hand because I've got a badge behind me which is showing the summit icon, but I can't seem to pick the right hand. We tried to do ours earlier in the day, and then what the following day is a little bit later so that it can accommodate everybody. But we've just had to cope with the fact that both Anshin and I are only awake at certain hours of the day. But the geography limits it, and now because it's global, you kind of feel like, I should have gone to that. Whereas actually, in my case, not only was it at the wrong time of the week, but also the timings didn't fit me, and I think that's probably a reasonable excuse to say I didn't catch it this time. I'm really sorry.
I think there's a really important conversation within the community around the idea of continuation of virtual events within our space because of the fact that we've reduced barriers. We've there are no we've reduced costs. If visas become an issue for traveling, for example, that's removed if we're talking about a virtual event. And absolutely, we need to also be getting back to in person, but just very aware that we can potentially deteriorate the experience of both if we try to focus on the both at the same time. So if we try and do the virtual whilst we're also doing the the physical, I think there needs to be to separate the two and get the best out of both, really.
Yeah. Maybe in the future we'll have these sort of hybrid events, and there'll be more of that, and you can attend, watch things live, but the focus, I suppose, will be on the people in the room and what have you. Just going to pause things for a moment and say, if you fancy stopping watching this for a moment and sharing out the URL, say that you're watching, get people to come in and join the conversation. We'd really appreciate that. wpbuilds.com/live. The chat hopefully will be working by now, even though the red buttons won't. I just simply haven't got the time at the minute to fix the red buttons because I'm doing this. Next week, I'll make sure that they're working. But wpbuilds.com/live. Just tweet it out. Let people know what's going on. And we've got a few people in. First one I'm going to mention is Marcus Burnett. Nice to have you on, Marcus. He, first of all, just says, "Hey, fellas, nice to have you with us at the start of the week." And then he goes on to talk specifically about WordCamp US. And he says, there were 2 tracks. Good to know. Maximum of 200 concurrent attendees in each, I believe. They were both live streamed on YouTube. Okay, so that's maybe where we get the figure of 400 from, if they're 2 maxed out at 200. I wonder what happened to people who were the 201st or the 201th. That's not a word.
No, they were still able to attend. It's just
okay.
that's the figure that they hit because they were just live streaming.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's where it maxed out. It's not some sort of concurrent limit. No, YouTube wouldn't be quite the success it was if it could only have maximum of 200 people watching something. Okay, and carrying on, he says, no booths this time, but each track used the YouTube built-in chat for conversations. Yes. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much indeed. And Rick, hi Rick, he's commenting on the previous article. He says it's like a Mercedes mechanic if he likes working on a Volkswagen. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, greetings, David. Nice to have you along for us. Like I said, go and share, let other people know that you're watching it, and we'll press on. Next one is this. I find this quite interesting. This is to say that in the past, every so often you get a little update to WordPress, and when the big update rolls around once a year or something along those lines, we get a new WordPress default theme. I have to say, and I don't know what you guys are going to say to this, I never use the default WordPress theme, but I know it's an opportunity for them to showcase what's going on. But it's very rare that I see the default theme showcased anywhere. Occasionally you see it where somebody's just obviously dropped a blog post or something and they just want to do it quickly, and there it is. Nevertheless, the theory is that in the future, the default WordPress theme will be updated in a much more swift manner. That is to say, it will come around more frequently. And the reasoning behind this, again, WP Tavern, Sarah Gooding tells us that it's all to do with the way that in the future these themes are going to be built. So we've got lovely modern things like blocks and block patterns and the theme JSON file, which kind of takes care of more or less everything for us. And so the idea would be, well, why not? Let's try and speed the process up. And so this is hopefully what's going to happen. There isn't much more to say than that, but I, for one, would certainly welcome it coming around more often, because I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be incendiary or anything, but because I never use it, the most that I do really is when I install WordPress on a new website, or when it updates itself and dumps it in a website, I kind of go and have a look at it and go, oh, that's nice. Oh, I'll never use that. But it will be nice to see, more opportunities for people to raise the, basically speed things up a little bit. And also with the new capabilities, block patterns and things like that, hopefully it'll be much more modular and you'll be able to drop bits in that you quite like the look of. And maybe that'll be the purpose. Instead of it just being one theme which handles blog posts and a homepage, it'll be, I don't know, here's a Woocommerce section, Woocommerce repeatable block or a block pattern, and here's a hero image pattern, and all of those kind of things will come in, and maybe that'll make it more interesting. So with that in mind, shall I go to Dan first this time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm very similar to you. I don't use the default themes. I did in my early days, and the early journey within WordPress for me it was about learning how to theme. I'd pull apart the default theme because I knew that was a good starting point. To educate myself, to train myself how to write themes. But one thing that I'm concerned, again, I seem to have a lot of concerns today, but I was just looking at the timeline of this, and this is being built on GitHub, so you can jump in and see see the progress, see what's going on. I believe the first commit was around, I think it was the 30th of September this year.
Yeah.
And this is due to be delivered on the 16th of November. So
yeah, clock's ticking.
I think we're 47 days, I think it is, from initial commit to public release. So 47 days is, I mean, that's an incredible timeline, an incredibly short timeline. And I just think about the pressures that we're putting on ourselves as a community, and as the teams that are taking on these responsibilities. I do wonder if, again, we need to just be thinking about how do we spread that out? How do we space that out so you're not under such an incredible time pressure to deliver something that's really incredibly important? As you've just said, you may see it, you'll install it just to see what's going on within WordPress and WordPress theming. We're talking about hundreds of millions of websites, so this is obviously being delivered into. Is 47 days really enough time to make sure it's fit for purpose?
What about you, Bob? Any thoughts on that?
That makes a lot of sense, Dan, because I go into make WordPress. I go into Slack. I just like to see activity. I absolutely have no idea what they're talking about most of the time, but I like to see the involvement and kind of get a reflection on that. And I'm thinking, yeah, here's another thing. Like, let's push it out. Yeah, that would be a concern for sure. And I see this as I think you were kind of saying this, Dan, and maybe probably the post is even saying it. It's almost like we have all these toys out. The themes are doing so many changes in the future. Let's have a theme that kind of reflects all those changes and is our, kind of our showcase. Here's what's going on with themes right now. And this is the default theme. I've never used it. I know a lot of people that have heavily customized it for one reason or another, but I understand why they're doing it. It'll be interesting to see what comes out. But one thing we don't need is any more rush added pressure, as Dan suggested.
Yeah, I'm just going to pop the screen back on again, because here's the quote in terms of theme.json and block patterns. It says innovations like, so I should add some context to this. Hold on. So this is, and I am so sorry, I genuinely have no capacity to pronounce this name, but I'm going to try it. Gel Reigstad is the person who's making this comment, and I don't want to butcher what their job is, but they are in some way responsible for this. For what's happening. They say innovations like theme.json, block templates, and block patterns are making theme development far simpler and providing new ways for users to customize their sites. There's reason to believe that the community can leverage all of this to build more frequent and diverse themes and customization solutions for our users in the coming years, which leads me to Cameron Jones. Hello again, Cameron. He says, so as full site editing becomes more powerful and making themes less relevant, we get more default themes. It makes little sense to me. And I kind of get what you mean. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? In a way, we're sort of we're bringing on an era where the theme really is going to be doing less and less. In a sense, what's the point? It feels to me as if really what we want is a load of block patterns and header and footer builders and block patterns. But yeah, good point, Cameron.
So I was leaning very much towards that same theory. And we had Anne McCarthy, and dare I mention his name on this show? Paul.
Oh,
Paul Lacey. Paul Lacey and Anne McCarthy came to join Diane Wallace and myself at the latest WPLDN to have a roundtable around full site editing. And I was very much that same sort of opinion of are they becoming less and less relevant? But actually, the way we were discussing it, the way Anne was presenting it to us, it made much more sense that they're becoming more relevant. They're becoming more important because of you're talking about block patterns. Well, are we talking about styling towards that block pattern? How do we manage that? And I guess is there an argument that we're almost heading towards a universal theme? I mean, what does that look like? How does, if we're having this default theme, should there be a universal theme as opposed to multiple default themes? And
I'm about to release a theme onto the repository. It's called the White Screen of Death theme, and it's got a white background and white text.
I'm going to do a blue screen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. It's going to be really popular. Speaking of Paul Lacey, he's cropped up in the comments. Look, I don't know how he dare crawl back in here. He says, "Hello, all. I'm 35 minutes behind. I'll put it on 1.5 speed and see if I catch up." Oh, that'd be nice. Yeah.
You can't even turn up on time.
I know he can't even be here on time for the show that he's decided to abandon. I'm going to keep milking that for everything it's worth. It's great, but good point, Cameron. And I'm guessing that at some point it may be that the theme is really just the sort of theme.json file with some sort of way to interact and just create some global headers. Sorry, not headers and footers, theme styles, fonts and colors and all of that kind of thing. We have to see. But so, Dan, what was that piece called? Is that available publicly, the chat that you had with Anne and Paul?
Yeah, we did a round table at the last WordPress London meetup. So that is available through the Big Orange Hearts YouTube. And it's a 45, 50-minute conversation between Anne, Paul, Diane Wallace and myself around full site editing.
If you can find the link for that, Dan, and stick it in the private chat, I'll put it on the screen and then Cameron can sort of grab hold of it. Or you can drop it into the chat if you're on Facebook or what have you. Sure. Up to you, whichever way you prefer to do it. Okay, in which case we'll move on. We're 45 minutes in, so that's just about perfect. So forgive the blatant self-promotion, but I'm going to blatantly self-promote because, why not? The Page Builder Summit is starting next week. We've got 37, I believe it is, people lined up now. It might even be more. I can't remember. But we've certainly got a full week of stuff lined up. It starts on next Monday. We'll be doing a little bit of introductory work in our Facebook group, just because that's the way we've decided to do it. We'll come to Facebook more a little bit later, and whether that's a good idea or not. But we're going to kick off the whole thing in the Facebook group, just because it allows us to chat with each other and put stuff out live like we're doing now. And then it'll be a case of show up, go to the schedule page, which is at pagebuildersummit.com/schedule. I'll show you that in just a second. And just cherry pick the ones that you like the look of. They are available for free. If you want to check them out, they're available for 24 hours after they go live. So let's say something goes live at 2:00 in the afternoon UK time. It will be available for you to watch until 2:00 UK time the next day. And then we take it down, and then we've got this little thing called the Power Pack, where if you wish to get access to all of the bits and pieces, plus loads and loads of speaker bonuses, then you can access that by signing up. When you grab your free ticket, we'll give you an opportunity to purchase that. I'll just show you the schedule because you might be interested in seeing that. We've got loads and loads of excellent people on, so it's pagebuildersummit.com/schedule. So you can see we've got Anne McCarthy, we've got Darren Moriali, we've got Michelle Frechette, Brian Gardner, Jennifer Bourne. Who else have we got? Corey Dodd, Laura Elizabeth, Martin Huntback and Lindsay Cambridge, Joe Casabona, Birgit Pauly Hack, Candy Phelps, Jonathan Jernigan, Chris Lubkirk, and the list goes on. Rob Stinson, Barner, Bucksbound, Pete Everett, Shannon Matern, Natasha Kozad, David McCann, Jake Foll, Glenette Goodbread, I'm running out of breath, Thomas Fanchin, Danielle Czar, Caro, Chris Badgett, Mike Oliver, Laura Kamart. I don't know if you pronounce that as Kamart. There is an accent on it, and I'm not familiar with what that accent does. Lee Shadle, Erin Flynn, and then on the final day, get my breath back, Benjamin Intal, and then there's Tran. And forgive me, Tran, I'm just not sure how to pronounce your name. So rather than destroy it, I'm going to just say Tran. And then Arindo and Vito. Plus, there's all these lovely people who are coming back for a second time around. They're basically in what we call our Vault sessions, and you get those for free. They run for the entire length of the summit. So there we go, pagebuildersummit.com. Go and check it out. And if you like the look of it, sign up and join us. We'll be there Monday next week, about a little bit sort of this time, kicking it off, which leads me to tell you that we won't have a show next week because I simply can't do that. And, unless Paul Lacey wants to come back and run it. But, no. But we won't be doing the show next week. So hopefully that's all right. Okay, there we go. That's over. Promotion done. Here we go. This is an interesting piece. Jamie, who's been on this show, Jamie Marsland, who is behind Poodle Press. This is cool. This is a super simple, well, I say simple in the sense that the interface is super simple And this is brilliant. Here's a 5-minute video of Jamie. It's called Block Injector, and essentially it allows you to create a block, and you can use any block that you wish to create that block. So you could, I don't know, put some generate blocks in, or you could put a cover block in, or WooCommerce type blocks in. And then you can tell your website, do you know what? I'd like to show this on every post who has a category of, I don't know, product or something like that. And I'd like it to be the 4th block to appear. And it will just do all of that for you. So it's a really simple interface. You build in the familiar way in blocks, and then there's a couple of little fields that you pick from. You'll be done in seconds. I think for me, this is pretty much a certain buy for me. I should say there is a cost. It's $49 as it says at the bottom. But I think for me, that's going to be money well spent, because I inject all sorts of nonsense all over on our website, and this will be really good. Perfect case here of why blocks are cool. It's a plugin which chucks blocks all over your website, and just go and watch the video if you're not convinced and you're thinking, I don't get it. Why would I want that? It's got a lot of really cool uses. So I'll put this one to Bob first, maybe.
Yeah, I've known Jamie for quite a while. I love his products. I'm like you, Nathan. It's, I'm not using something like that now, but probably in the future I will. And if I do, this is like a no-brainer, because, and Nathan, pre-show, I know we were talking a little bit about some of the stuff there's ad plugins out there, and some of them are very convoluted, and they make it like way too complicated to be able to just inject something somewhere, and you just want to make it global on your site. So and the block thing, that's just an added huge bonus, because with all the different blocks, it's almost, when I see something like that, right away I'm thinking, oh, how can I use it? I'll probably just create an idea just for I can buy it and use it, because it's like one of those things that now that I have every block that I can possibly put somewhere and not look like I'm going crazy, there's some options there that I really like. So yeah, I'm sure I'll be snagging it here soon, just because of that reason. I think it's one of those things, when I buy plugins, a lot of times I don't have a need at the time, but I create needs. And I realize that now it's a lot easier, and I can use this because, before I kind of thought about that, but now it's something, going to do for sure. So,
yeah. In my case, I've got a plugin which inserts, essentially it's a bit of HTML, but it ends up being an ad. So for example, on blog posts, it will inject in the 3rd paragraph. So it's a different sort of paradigm. But it will say 3rd paragraph, inject that piece of HTML, which ends up looking like an ad. This will do exactly the same thing. Everything that I do on WP Builds that's not a template, so all the content is created in the block editor.
Yeah,
actually, Beaver Builder handles the
and it does
template.
have a date timer on it too. I think you can run it, which is really nice too, because how embarrassing is that when you have something up and it's over, somebody tells you. So, there is some, it's a really slick little plugin for sure.
Yeah, so there's a from and to date. So, post sort of scheduler basically, and you can expire things. Really neat, really. But the sky is the limit. So the block could, I'm describing something trivial like a little ad. But so that an image, really, you just drag in an image block. But the sky is the limit. It could be, I don't know, featured products or most recent blog posts or anything. So Jamie's just leaving it to other people to decide what to put in, but he's built the structure to inject it wherever you want it. So really cool. Nice. Dan, you liking it?
I am. I think a very, very powerful tool. I think this is the direction that we're going with the block editor. It's opening up some really interesting opportunities going forward.
I saw a really nice one, and I'm going to credit Rich Tabor, I'm not 100%, called Show Hide Blocks. And I'm pretty sure it's him. And that's a really nice one as well. Simple idea. Essentially, just show this block on this thing. So it could be a post category of whatever, and hide it on other things. It's less, this is slightly different than you get to position it. So, but similar, but maybe go and check that one out as well. But I should say, let's put that back on the screen. This one is over at, okay, so it seems that they don't have a website dedicated to this at the moment. You need to go to Pootlepress, POOTLEPRESS.com/block-injector. And it looks like it's $49 with a 14-day trial. So there you go. You can check that out and see what you make of it. I'm loving it. I'm more or less certain to get this ASAP. Okie doke. Let's see if any comments are coming in. Oh, Heinrich's just popped in to say that he bought the power pack for the summit. With great power comes great expectations. Oh dear. Honestly, it's really good. I think if you've got any thoughts of sort of watching stuff over and over again. Here's a trick, Heinrich. As if you do buy the power pack, you can watch everything before anybody else, and then you can come to the presentation and you can take charge of the chat and ask the person who's doing that talk all your questions, because you'll be fully armed with what it is that you need to ask. So there you go. There's a tip. Right, moving on. Let's go to this one. Honestly, I've got nothing much to say about this, just that it crossed my radar this week. And when I see new stuff, even though in this case, this isn't something I'm going to be using anytime soon, it's nice to just raise things up and mention them. So this is over at Logtivity, LOGTIVITY.io. And it's branding itself as the new awesome activity log for WordPress. Because these days I'm basically involved in building stuff largely for myself, not all that bothered too much about the logs, but if you've used WordPress websites and suddenly you've got clients on your back saying, well, how did this happen? Who put that there? Something like this will do that for you. The intention being really it tracks everything that's done on your WordPress website, not just the usual stuff. In fact, they, excuse me for my coughing fit, they say that basically they'll log event tracking, they'll give you instant alerts, and they've got a customizable reporting dashboard. That's all I've got about this at the moment, but just thought I'd mention it. I can't remember who sent it in my direction, but just thought it was a nice tool. I don't suppose Dan and Bob, you got anything about this? Maybe not.
And I think another looks like another interesting solution. I mean, how many times have we heard from clients? Oh, it's broken. What did you do? We didn't do anything. It's that trying to resolve what's happened. And
in my case, it was always easy because it was always me. Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, that was me. I've logged myself as doing the terrible thing. But there's another one, isn't there? What's the one by the WP Security? Is it WP Security Audit
log?
Activity log.
Yeah, that's the one I'm more familiar with. I actually did a tutorial on it a while back, and again, I don't use it personally, but I think there's definitely value there. And especially even with large teams, just knowing what your team's doing constantly or being able to look back and see what changes are made. So yeah, there's a place for these things, and for sure. And I know for WooCommerce sites, I'm not sure if this one, I think it probably integrates with WooCommerce. I know the other one does, but that's an important piece too, is seeing, all these products. If you have, 2,000 products on there, you can be watching if somebody's switching out a photo or a price or anything or a description. Yeah. So.
Yeah, good point. And we sort of treat it we've been sort of jocular about it, sort of saying we're looking for things going astray. And it might not be that. It might literally be somebody making either an accidental error, or you never know, it might be something malicious that's happened. Somebody's sort of gained access, created an admin user, and it might be the perfect way to actually undo to the exact moment where things started to go astray. And so it's not just about apportioning blame and pointing the finger and saying, oi, don't upload those images. It might more be, oh, okay, this is where it started to go wrong at 5:32 on Friday when Nathan logged in.
Yeah. I've often thought, for myself, it might even be good because I forget most of the stuff I do. I don't log in.
Yeah.
So, it's like, what did I do 3 days ago? I know I did something and I think maybe I shouldn't have. So,
yeah, perfect for teams, I would imagine, especially, large agencies trying to keep a track of who's doing what and when it went wrong and whatnot. Anyway, there we go. Just thought that was nice. And in that kind of vein, there's, again, this is going to feel like I'm blowing my own trumpet. I'm really not. It just seemed to be the perfect way of surfacing it. I did a podcast episode with a guy called Justin Clem this week. about a product that he's got called Ghost Inspector. And similar kind of vein in that Ghost Inspector is a service which enables you. Do you know what? Let me just click on the. I must have a link. There we go. Ghost Inspector enables you to do all sorts of really complicated tracking on your website to make sure it's working. So rather than sort of keeping logs and then trying to figure out backwards where it went wrong, this is all about preventing things from going wrong. And one of the things that I think is really cool about this is that it'll fill in forms for you and then check the responses. So, for example, if you've got a contact form, typically you only know the contact form's is stopped working when you get a disgruntled email from a client saying, I know that the contact form has stopped working when, to which you say, I have no idea. It could have been last year for all I know. This will actually fill out the forms and look to see if it's getting a response. It's quite clever how it all works. There's a ton more to it than that. It does the typical kind of, comparing. Here's an image from 5 o'clock and here's an image from yesterday at 5 o'clock. They're no different. Everything's tickety-boo. There's one, Bob. We must write that one down. Tickety-boo. We'll come to that later. Anyway, it does all these really complicated things. And again, the sort of same thing. It's a bit like an insurance policy, like the Logtivity was that we looked at earlier. It's called Ghost Inspector. Might be worth checking out. My understanding is that it probably will cope with more than just WordPress, but I don't actually know. But anyway, there you go. Dan, anything? Bob, anything?
I thought this looked like a really interesting solution, actually. The way you're kind of packaging up, delivering a SaaS solution for your automated testing, because automated testing can be hard, can be very complicated. To be honest, I hadn't come across this until you shared the link with me. So
nice. Well, you install a browser extension. So in my case, I'm using Brave, but it's the same thing as Chrome essentially. And then you just click play on the Chrome extension, and then you just go around the website doing things, and it will record everything that you're doing. So you might go and fill out the form, or you might go and go through a checkout process, and it will just. He explains in the podcast how it all works, not to any incredible degree, but he explains roughly how it works, and so it's it's going up and down the DOM and checking what this element's called and what the class name is for this, that, and the other thing, and recording it all, and then every day, week, month, however often you ask it to do it, it will go and try and replicate that exact same set of instructions. And for me, it feels like WooCommerce is the perfect thing for this, because if your checkout stops working, or if that upsell button no longer upsells anything, or I don't know, just imagine the things that you could be getting wrong with a WooCommerce store, and obviously there's a direct economic consequence to that. This seems like a really nice solution for it. You should get him on, Bob. He's called Justin Clem. He was a very, very nice guy.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah,
Okay.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. I don't think we had any acquisition news last week, which was the first time in months, but we have some this week. I've spoken to Andre Gagnon many times on the podcast. I think he's been on the podcast twice, and then I think I've done a couple of webinars with him. Really, really nice chap. And for the longest time, he was in the WordPress space with Project Huddle. That was what he did, and he brought it from it came out of his head, and he created it, and it's a tool so that you can essentially get clients to give you feedback on your website. So you have it on a separate WordPress install, and then you sort of go and drop a bit of code into your client websites, and it enables them to make commentary on. So, for example, if they didn't like the font that you were using on the title of a page, they can just click on it, make a comment, do a screenshot, all of those kind of things. Very similar to what WP Feedback, which then became Atarim, sort of really similar, but different companies. And he's this week decided it's time to do other things, and he sold it to Brainstorm Force, who I'm sure you've heard of. They do all sorts of things, probably most famously the Astra Theme. So here we go, more consolidation. I'll hand it over to you guys.
I think we're in a really interesting time, aren't we? I mean, this evolution of the WordPress space. It's I'd used Project Huddle before. I've also used Brainstorm Force products. Really interesting to see where they take this. That transition that we're seeing in our space at the moment. If you look at the likes of, for example, Stellar WP, the acquisitions that have gone on there to create an end-to-end solution, essentially. If we're bringing together a bunch of tools that make sense for our particular niche of a client base. Really interesting to see this taking place.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the perfect thing that they've already got is. And I just wonder if it's going to be some sort of thing that they upsell through Astra or something like that. Because I couldn't find the product that they already sell, which was the perfect bolt on to this. But yeah, I mean, big-ish WordPress company. Lots of, they're used to handling support requests and used to pushing out updates. They do say, as you would imagine, they always say this. In fact, I've never come across a plugin that's been sold where this wasn't the mantra to drop. Your current licenses, including lifetime and access to Project Huddle, will not change. For the foreseeable time, Project Huddle's pricing will remain the same and you will get regular updates and support. And then, again, the usual stuff, but things are going to get better, hopefully with more eyeballs, because my understanding was that Andre was doing a lot of this himself. And now he's got things like Presto Player to divert his time. So maybe it was time to move on. Sorry, Bob, I totally cut you off there.
No, you didn't cut me off at all. I absolutely have really nothing to add. Just with all the acquisitions, it's I'm just wondering, it's given us to something to talk about on all these shows. That's keeping us busy. That's for sure. I guess one on positive side of it. I just wonder when it will become the norm, when we start, oh yeah, it's just happening. And, I come from the world of business outside of WordPress. And I've said myself, this is something I've seen forever. And now it's kind of starting to happen in the WordPress space. And yeah, there's a lot of talk around it. I take it with a grain of salt. I see the opportunities. I love that, people can build these incredible products and actually find people interested in paying some money for them. And that's, kudos to them. And yeah, we'll just see how it all plays out. And when it becomes the norm, I'm going to I'm timing that to when, it's like, oh yeah, it's no more the big news, but we'll see.
The thing that I'm finding quite curious is prior to a couple of weeks ago, I'm just rewinding my brain. I could be wrong about this, but it felt like almost every acquisition was being done by a hosting company. So Liquid Web, Nexus, GoDaddy, all of those, they were very large companies with enormous revenue, I would have thought, each and every year. And so they were buying them up. But then a couple of weeks ago, we got Awesome Motive, which is a plugin, a plugin company buying out another plugin. And then this time around, Brainstorm Force, which is another, basically a plugin company, theme company, plugin company, doing the same thing. So it almost feels like the smaller businesses are now starting to eat up the other, perhaps even smaller ones, which it feels like a little bit new. Obviously, people like Brainstorm Force probably want to not compete in the hosting space at any point soon, I wouldn't have imagined, but they want to swell out their offering. And you wonder. We had a curious conversation last week where people were speaking of Awesome Motive and they were just wondering. Alex Denning wrote a piece about the marketing power of Awesome Motive and the fact that as soon as they buy up one product, it makes everything that they've got better. You wonder if the same thing will be true over here. Upsells in Astra, you've got an Astra license, get 30% off or something. There's an idea, Brainstorm Force. You heard it here first. All righty.
Nathan, the next thing will be a podcaster buys a plugin, then we'll figure that one out.
Done. Damn, I bet it'll be you as well.
You
can buy my white screen of death theme if you like. I'll sell it to you for $1.
It's a dollar store.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, a couple of comments. That's really nice. Some more about the. Thank you for Chris Hughes and also for Rick for nice comments about buying the the Page Builder Summit things. That's really nice of you to say. And Rob Cairns talking about Ghost Inspector, I think, saying he loves the idea of solutions like that. And also Rob dropping in again, saying he thinks it kind of is becoming the norm now, Bob.
Yeah, it is. It's leveling out, it'll become a side post,
That's right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, even feature it just be this week's acquisitions feature from da 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 da. Right. Moving on.
Yeah.
And so let's move on. Right. We're out of the WordPress side of things, but I'm curious to know, before we talk about this article, both of you, were you affected by the Facebook outage last week? Did it affect, grind your gears, have any impact on your life whatsoever?
None.
Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry. None. I've uninstalled Facebook from my phone. I've pretty much, short of deactivating my account, I'm just not making use of their tools at the moment. And that's not been necessarily a kind of a dedicated conscious decision. I've just over the last couple of years, it's just drifted away from me.
Yep. What about you, Bob?
I deactivated my business and personal profile several months ago. So, I mean, again, I can't, I'm not trying to sound cocky or anything, but yeah, it was like, it was a blip in my screen just because I'm not on there anymore.
It's really interesting. It had minimal effect on me, but I'm really interested that both of you have taken steps to really cut back on it. I'm the same, but I haven't cut the cord yet, because, as an example, the Facebook group that we have for this podcast it's a nice place to be. It's got nearly getting close to 3,000 people in there, and it's really nice. It's polite and civil, and there's commentary. It's not overwhelming. There's not like hundreds a day. There's a few, maybe half a dozen or more questions posed each week, so it's fairly low key. And for that reason alone, I stick around on Facebook. But I've installed mechanisms to stop Facebook getting in my way. So my Facebook feed, with the help of a Chrome extension, I'm going to say, it just doesn't exist. There's absolutely nothing there to see. And I've also I was saying to you, Dan, the other day, wasn't I? I've contained the cookies of Facebook. It's only open on this computer. It can't have been a Chrome extension. It must be on the what's it called, Mozilla Firefox side. Got this. Spoke about it the other day. This extension in Mozilla Firefox, which enables you to keep the cookies of Facebook inside Facebook's silo, so they don't stray out and infect everything else. So I've tried quite a lot to do the stepping away, and for me, I think that's a happy medium. But I was surprised by the impact that it had. Like simple things, like my kids communicate with my wife via WhatsApp, and all of a sudden there was no recognition that had broken. And so rather than sort of looking into the story anymore, my kids were sending messages and they just weren't getting delivered, and they didn't think to pursue it in another way. So that sort of just had an impact. I speak to Anshan on Messenger to organize the summit, so that kind of dried up and we had to think of something else. But apparently it was pretty bad for quite a lot of people. They've got their entire workforce inside of Facebook. And
I think the dependency, there's a lot of dependency on it. And they wrote on Post Status, David Bissett wrote something about, we got to keep saying, own your own content and stuff. And I understand that. I understand his, because a lot of people, and I've been guilty of it too, in the WordPress space, of saying, you got to own your own content, don't be on a third-party platform. But there's a lot of variables there. A lot of people can't afford it. There's, geographical reasons. So we can't just blanket statement that, unfortunately. But yeah, there was, and there's a lot of people that, I cringe at it that they're depending on Facebook, but I'm not in their shoes, so I can't sit there and be almighty and say, hey, do it this way, or take the highway or whatever. But
yeah,
and for me, really, I left Facebook because of more of a personal. I just was disgusted with the platform. I was disgusted with a lot of stuff that I just, I didn't have a real active page. I was a little bit bummed. There was a couple groups that I couldn't access now. And, obviously I can't access. And I understand that one piece, like you said, Nathan, there's one piece holding you there because that's something you build up. And yeah, you can't just dump it and say, okay, everybody, we're going to move here or something, move on Slack or I don't know where. But, so there's, and when people ask me, I'm not going around boasting about that. I left Facebook because for me, it was more of a personal reason. And I just personally just didn't like what it stood for anymore. And I found myself complaining about it too much. And I thought, why am I just complaining about it? I just need to take action. One day I just did it and said, time to move on.
Yeah. Pretty clear that we're probably not the three of us are probably not the perfect demographic, are we? Because we've got a foot in the door of WordPress and all that stands for. And so this piece on the tavern, which Sarah wrote, all about it going down, more of a piece about should we own our own content and what have you. And I do think that's true. I mean, obviously, you own it until your hosting company goes down, and then just like Facebook going down, you're kind of doomed anyway. But it's less that, more that you still do, and you can download a copy of it and back it up each day, and you can take it somewhere else. So, there's going to be moments where it goes down. But just really curious that so many people throughout the world were genuinely unable to function in their workplace and communicate with people because they've become dependent upon it. I know a lot of people who will say this exact same sentence, and Dan and I actually now communicate, well, quite a lot on Slack, but also on an app called Signal, which I think you can probably get it. I think it's signal.org. It's a different approach to messaging. That's all it does. It does messaging. It's, there's no social network attached to it, but I rather like that. But also I have installed, and I know, Dan, you weren't that much of a fan of it. I've installed this thing called Mastodon, which you can actually find if you go to wpbuilds.social. If you want to get involved of it, it's a bit like Twitter, but without but more confusing than Twitter because it's federated. So don't go there if you don't want at least to scratch your head a couple of times, because it is a bit strange how you set up your account and everything. Actually, it's not that hard. But Mastodon, you can go in, just like you can with Facebook, you can go and install your own Mastodon instance on a server. And I'm imagining there's a bunch of opportunities to install that with one click on certain hosting companies. I'm not really sure, but it's great. I really like it. And we've got 60 people over there, and it's pretty thin. The conversation is pretty thin on the ground, but occasionally I drop in there and somebody's left me a comment. So anyway, there you go. That's
I'm with Robert's comment there about we need to teach you Twitter.
Yeah, I'm going to. You know what? I'm going to start a summit, and there's going to be 30 speakers, and it's just going to be for you. It's going to be the Nathan on Twitter Summit, and we're all going to have our parts, and we're all going to walk you through it. And other people attend it, fine, but we're just going to each have a session to sit down with you, and we're each going to take a different part, and we're going to have the Nathan on Twitter Summit.
For context, I literally don't get Twitter. What I mean by that is, like, I get that it's a thing and it's really popular. I don't understand how it works. I cannot get it into my head. So over there is a screen with Twitter on it. One of them is TweetDeck. The other one is just Twitter, normal Twitter. Twitter comes down, TweetDeck goes up. So they're going in different directions for a start. And like, I don't know. So on TweetDeck, replies are above the previous. So you have to read the whole thing backwards. But also, I don't get where things begin. So I'll see a comment and it's got @WP Builds in it. And then where did that come from? How did that get there? And then Dan showed me there's a little line in the top corner and you can scroll and follow. But that didn't help. Still just don't get it. And I get completely lost because... right. Okay. Sorry. I've hijacked the show. Is it possible? Can tweets spawn other threads? So can one tweet go off in like multiple different directions? Mm-hmm. Or does it always come back to that one tweet?
Yes, you end up with a conversation off a tweet, but you can have multiple conversations off that single tweet.
Yeah, you see, this is where I'm... totally confused. But
I don't think you're doing yourself any favors with TweetDeck and
oh,
Twitter.
okay. You see, I thought I was being really clever. I thought, oh, this looks shiny. I can view 9 things at once. Okay, I'm going to turn that off, and I'll maybe go back to the original.
TweetDeck can be I've used it for years. It can be very valuable, but you've got to figure it out. You've got to get a system in place. Once you get it in place, otherwise, it's just it's a freaking nightmare. Like Dan said, it'll send you off. We don't need added confusion to your brain, Nathan, when it comes to Twitter. So focus on one thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm still on the, it's hard enough to get the computer to switch on in the morning. But yeah, thank you. That was Rob Cairns saying we need to teach Nathan Twitter. Seriously, you may try. You will fail.
I have tried, and I have failed.
There's no way you're gonna. I'm just too much of a Luddite when it comes to it. No, there'll be an epiphany moment. It'll be. I know when it'll be. It'll be as I'm just about to draw my last breath. I'll say, I understand.
Give me my phone.
That's right. Give me the phone. I want to tweet something, and then I'll go blissfully off into the afterlife. Yeah, there we go. That's a bombshell. Right. Anyway, okay. So Facebook didn't affect any of us particularly, but apparently it affected the world. A lot of ire. Lots of people. Sorry, Dan. Go on.
Did you see on the Facebook looking at the? I think it was CNET reported. They estimated that cost Facebook $60 million in revenue for that 6-hour outage. So we're saying that estimated value there is $10 million an hour income from Facebook.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, those kind of numbers don't sort of surprise me for a company that big. The interesting thing, which Dan and I actually talked about a couple of days ago, was actually why it happened. And let's not get into that because neither of us ended up understanding what happened. But I'm curious that essentially one misconfigured setting could drive the whole thing, and not even the Facebook staff could use their own internal tools, which oddly, most companies don't use their own internal tools. They'll use another, Microsoft Teams or Slack or something. Facebook's using their own tools. I wonder how many of them went on Twitter to fix Facebook. Quick, everybody over to Twitter. It's still up. And apparently Twitter were quite good at poking fun with a bunch of tweets. The actual Twitter account poked fun, which was quite fun.
And the bigger question is, the Facebook people understand Twitter? It can be confusing, Nathan.
Yeah, I get Facebook. That's the problem. I need to wean myself off Facebook and then understand Twitter. There'll be a horrible no man's land period, but I'll get there in the end. Right. Okay. Moving on. So this is not really moving on because it's the same story essentially, but not only did Facebook go down, but the following day, Mr. Zuckerberg, there he is looking ever so cheery. He that is him being that was his most
really
excited.
I mean, it's not a mannequin or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, honestly, we shouldn't go down this route. There'll be lawsuits. But they not only did they go down, but there was a big whistleblowing story that blew up last week where a lady whose name was Frances Haugen, I believe, she testified before Congress. I'm really sorry, Bob, I don't understand the US system, but Congress.
I don't either.
Oh, good. Okay. So Congress, big important Congress anyway. She testified with them, and from everything that I saw, it was pretty damning in that it would appear that a lot of internal research that points to what can only be described as alarming conclusions about the impact of Facebook, especially younger users of Facebook, seems to be getting pushed to one side because there's an obvious profits conflict. And I'm sitting there watching all of this, and I didn't watch the actual conversation where she spoke to Congress. For me, it was more editorialized 3-minute, where they coalesce the whole thing down into 3 minutes. I watched those, but it did seem as if there's more questions to be asked. And, you've obviously, both of you decided to step back. I've been trying to step back. This just starts to close the lid more firmly than ever before, really.
Yeah, I agree. It was pretty, yeah. It was one of those things I went through some of it and read a bit of it, and it was like, whoa, how much can this go? But yeah, It's crazy stuff.
Yeah. And Dan, obviously, with your big orange hat on, the whole well-being and really not having things in your life which are going to cause you pain and suffering, it would appear that is exactly what is behind some of the products for certain users given certain situations. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think but there were also questions raised about her knowledge in relation to her role within the company. So I just think there's just lots of clouds around all of this. I don't think we really ever get the truth in some of these matters, which it's a very difficult conversation. I think these ones.
Yeah, lots of Facebook news this week anyway. So Sarah Gooding's piece, and then this one was from The Verge. Maybe you want to go and check that out. But okay, so given that we now all have decided Facebook is something that we never want to use again, obviously go to WordPress. That's dead cool. We all love that. But I didn't get a chance to read this, and I'm not therefore promoting it. But I did come across something called Mirror. Look at that. My browser's trying to get me to set up crypto wallets. How curious is that? I've never seen that before. I'm going to make that go away right away. Publishing on Mirror is now open to all. And it says, last December, Mirror launched its first decentralized publishing protocol. Over the past year, we have also launched economic blocks for crowdfunding, auctions, NFT editions, and splits, as well as governance product. Mirror has evolved from a tool for writers to a full stack Web3 creative suite for communities and DAOs. More than ever, we believe that every creative project starts with a story. Our goal is to make Mirror the best place to share your journey with the world and build a highly engaged community around it, powered by its world-class crypto native tools. Honestly, Dan, I'm hoping that you've read this piece because I don't even get it. What the heck is a decentralized publishing protocol?
So it's really interesting timing, actually, and I'm glad that you brought this one up. David Lockey, over CMO at Angry Creative, a WooCommerce WordPress agency. Yep. I don't know if you saw, he's been doing a lot of talking about monetization of content within WordPress, and that's been on the forefront of a lot of his talks, and around blockchain, cryptocurrency, and general monetization of our content. This week, he has announced the web monetization for WordPress. If you head over to webmonetization.dev/WordPress, starting off with a bunch of educational pieces, really, to help us start to be able to monetize our web content without having to. It's basically it's all this Web 3.0. How do we come away from this horrible system that we've got at the moment, where everything's reliant on ads and we're just bombarded with ads to generate income, and then big companies are trawling our data to be able to service the correct ads, etc. So really interesting space. The use of blockchain, cryptocurrency to start to build out alternative ways for us to start monetizing our content. I just thought it's a really interesting space to be in at the moment.
What was it? Web monetization. Is that with a Z or an S?
It is with a Z, yes.
Oh, you see, there's the problem.
Let me drop it in the chat here for you.
Oh, I still can't make it work.
Oh,
WordPress
that's
monetization. I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you figure out the URL. And if you do.
What I've just dropped in there for you.
Oh, yeah, you dropped in. Oh, you in the private chat, you've dropped in something about Big Orange Heart. You're advertising to me. Check you out. Monetizing your content in the private chat.
Is that what the private chat is for?
It's not that private now, is it? But okay, this is fascinating. So although I don't know anything about it, it just caught my attention. And when I see the words decentralized and publishing, something curious happens, and I have to at least bookmark it, and I'll come back to it. That's all I'm going to say. Now, this is cool. This is Dan's pick of the week. Just wait until you hear this. This is so cool. So let me put this back on the screen. I didn't know this was happening. Thankfully, Dan's here to school us all. Go on. Tell us what this is all about. This is Cloudflare.
This is Cloudflare massively disrupting a big part of our industry here. So S3, we've all heard AWS S3 storage. incredible infrastructure. Here we are. We've gone from S3 to Cloudflare's R2. So R2, if you've it's a storage solution. They are basically looking to remove, as you can see on there, the egregious fees in relation to storage. I was looking at the numbers, and if you are delivering, let's say, 50 terabytes of data through your web application a month, if you're on AWS S3, that 50 terabytes of data on the what was this going to be? So this will be on your outbound data transfer, 50 terabytes a month. It's going to cost you about $4,500 on AWS S3.
Right, drum roll. Go on.
R2 could cost you around $10 a month.
What? I mean, that is bonkers reduction in. I mean, really, that's incredibly different. How do we go from $4,000 to $10? Because my understanding was that AWS was always really cheap and affordable, and 50 terabytes, that's a lot of data. So that price seems. Have you any insight into how they're getting the fees down so low?
Not a clue.
No.
Not a clue. But they've come in not just with this announcement, but they're also, I mean, they're massively trying to disrupt some industries here. They've also announced their WebRTC Components, so an API for WebRTC. So all of the stuff that we're looking at right now in terms of kind of the live streaming, all of that, there's huge amounts of potential there. And they've also announced, if you're not looking to get involved with the API side, you've got the what is now called their Stream Live service. This lot combined, it's just quite an incredible set of announcements that have come out in quick succession from Cloudflare.
So a lot of the things, so obviously data transfer is becoming incredibly cheap on the Cloudflare end, but also things like live streaming, they've decided that's a component where they want to actively be. So not just normal data transfer, websites, assets, whatever it might be, but they also want to get involved in, well, transferring images and sound. And I wonder if this is a push into more mainstream, not just live streaming like this, but TV, Netflix type. If you've got you want to release your own local TV channel or something, this might be the way to do it. And if the costs are that low, that really feels amazing.
That's right. Yep.
Yes. I don't know if you've got anything about that, Bob, but if you do,
it's. I don't know what to say. Anything I share is just nothing compared to this. It's like $4,000 to $10. I mean, yeah, it's if I ever have that much, data that needs to be transferred, I'll be a happy person. Well, maybe I won't be happy because I have that much, but at least cost-wise, I would be.
It's curious as well because Dan is right in the space where he is building for the WPLDN side of things. He's building a platform rather like this, including the sign-ups and the chat and essentially this, but he's doing it all with some open source software and their own in-house code. And obviously one of the big things is the cost of transferring the data. And this almost brings it down to free for the amount of data that, let's be honest, a WordPress event is not going to be like Netflix. You're not going to be doing terabytes of data. And it brings it down to literally pennies, which is remarkable.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the last item we've got for you today, there was Dan with his fairly highbrow, interesting thing about Cloudflare. This is from Bob. Last time Bob was on, but this is so good. Last time Bob was on, I can't remember what it was that you dropped. You dropped some vocabulary that I'd never heard.
I made it my goal. My appearances here are brought with a new word that you can use in your everyday language. And last time it was spuddling.
Oh, that was it.
I'm not even going to tell people what that is because I expect them to go back into the archives and listen to the show and learn about it. But I found another one because they're all essentially around laziness and stuff, which is fun to talk about anyway. But came across this one called Hurkle Derkling. And it's a 19th century Scots. They use the word for someone who is lying in bed, lounging about long after it's time to get moving. So these words are great because we're all probably experience this all the time. So, whether you'll actually be able to segue this kind of word into your vocabulary is another another thing going. But I thought it was great. You can just get on Twitter and say, sorry, I was Hurkle Derkling, and here I am now, and people will think, good Lord, what was he doing? So it could get a good conversation going, if anything.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of things about this. Firstly, it sounds cool. There's just something about the like spuddling, the sound of the words coming out of your mouth. It's just sublime, isn't it? Hurkle Derkling. Is it just? I don't know why, but it brings ducks to mind for some reason. I don't know. But the sound is great. But also, I shall be able to use this because I have teenagers in my house, and they Hurkle. What do they do? How does that work? Do they Hurkle Derkle, or are they Hurkle Derklers?
You go with whatever. I say,
go with whatever. Get up, you're Hurkle Derkling again. I shall be using that. That's brilliant, and I love the fact that you've decided you've created a meme for yourself every time you come on the show. You're going to try and expand our vocabulary in that way. That's lovely. Okay, and on that bombshell, it's perfect timing. We've run over by just about 30 seconds, so we'll stop there. Thank you. Few minutes, if you wish, Bob and Dan, if you just want to let us know where is the best place to find you, or if you've got anything pressing that you want to share from this week in particular that's coming up. Let's start with you, Dan. Best way to find you.
So best way to connect with me is across Big Orange Heart, or anything social is /Dan Maybe, MABY, bigorangeheart.org for anything related to wellbeing and mental health. Just if you don't mind me quickly mentioning, we did announce the last WPLN last week that WordFest will be taking place again 4th of March 2022, but we'll actually be delivering two, so you can expect one on the 4th of March and one on the 9th of September 2022.
Nice. So you got the dates. Say them again. What were the dates?
March 4th.
Yep.
And September 9th.
Okay, put them in the diary. Are they roughly 6 months apart?
They are almost exactly 6 months apart.
Ideal. Yeah, nice. Thank you. Okay, great. And Bob, what about you?
You're into WooCommerce, WooCommerce Builder, dothewoo.io, do the woo on Twitter. I'm Bob WP, just about everywhere else. And yeah, I'd hoped when I came to this show that I would be sharing this, but just a heads up, first part of November, we are doing a total rebrand and rebuild of the Do the Woo site. An agency doing, yes, we're using a page builder, but they're setting it all up, so I won't have to learn it as much. But yeah, it's a huge remake of it. A lot of stuff going on with that site. So be watching for that first part of November.
Fantastic. So yeah. Oh, it's a shame you didn't make the cut. I suspect there was probably a large amount of Hurkle Derkling going on.
Yeah, there was
on the developer side. There was just
cuddling, and
that's right.
That's right.
There was just wall to wall Hurkle Derkling, and it never got done. But that's great. Next time you come back on, you can in fact, you can show us it next time you come back on, and we'll be able to look at it. So thank you very much, Dan. Maybe thank you very much, Bob. Can you give us a quick wave, because I use this wave for the album art, and there we go. That's perfect. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to press stop. Join us next week. No, don't join us next week. We're not here. We're doing the Page Builder Summit. Come back in a few weeks' time and we'll have a show for you. Until then, take it easy. Bye.